Ladies and gentlemen, turn your spyglass toward the west. Make your critics eat their words smothered in brown sauce. And take your 8-year-old to the school psychologist as soon as possible.
Because it's time to talk Tull to me.
Welcome back. I'm Omen Sade.
And I am Nick McGill. We are Feckless Momes.
And this is Talk Tull to Me.
Every week, we construct a wall made of bricks. Each song is a brick. Each week, a new brick. One after the other until we reach the highest of heights with the end of Jethro Tull's catalog.
That's right. We are building a tower up to Mount Olympus. What could possibly go wrong?
No hubris here.
No. No.
So this week, we have no housekeeping. I gave Mary the week off, so we're good.
Yeah. We also have no house.
I mean, that helps in not having a housekeeping.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is going to be a beefy one anyway, so let's just jump right in, Omen.
Nick.
We're starting a new album this week.
We certainly are.
We
really are.
What are we getting into here?
Nick, we are about to tackle with our bare hands an album which is perhaps one of the most iconic and important rock albums in the history of our galaxy.
I know that sounds hyperbolic, but you're really not wrong in that statement.
No, for this one day, Nick, this one day, my BS is right on the level with reality.
It fits perfectly. The stars and planets have aligned.
That's right. We are listening to the first few minutes of Thick as a Brick.
Should we get into a little detail on the album itself before we dive into the first 5 minutes?
I think it would be helpful to provide a little bit of context. I'm sure that all of our listeners are really well versed in this, but it's good to do a recap.
Absolutely, a good refresher. I feel like I knew most of it, but going back and reading it, it was a good kind of reminder.
Yeah.
So before we get into facts, first I want to give you the words of Ian Anderson about this album.
Okay.
Directly from his mouth. And This is from the prog and classic rock magazine for Jethro Tull that I introduced months ago that I got from my brother, but now we're in a new album.
What's it called again?
It's literally just called Jethro Tull. But it's from Prog Magazine and Classic Rock Magazines. They're from the Archive series.
Gotcha.
It's basically all of the interviews and information they've put together in one convenient little package about Tull.
Right.
So, for Thick as a Brick, quote, "After Aqualung, I felt we had to take a big step forward. Many writers wrote about Aqualung as a concept album, and I kept saying maybe 2 or 3 songs in the same area, but not a concept. In the wake of all of that, I thought, right, let's show them what a concept album is. And it seemed like an amusing idea to go down that route in this Python-esque way and try to use surreal humor. It clicked in America, which was a surprise, and it was our first real foray in that sort of theatrical presentation." So that's a quick little blurb of...
Wow, yeah.
That's basically just Ian's description of that album.
Yeah.
What do you got? You got some stats, some details on this?
I mean, it was released in March 10th of 1972.
Yep.
Shortly before what would become my birthday. Thank you very much, Ian.
I mean, not that short. 13 years.
Oh, I meant in terms of the days, but thank you for reminding me how terribly old I feel. That's very considerate of you.
So it hit number 1 in the States.
Yes, it did.
It was their first and only number 1.
Which, I mean, how many other albums which are a continuous 45 piece of music have ever been #1 hits, Nick. Can't be that many.
So you're saying it might be the first single to hit #1, both single and album.
Right, exactly. We've talked a little bit about this, but because the previous album that we have been looking at was kind of comprised of music from various time periods, it's worth kind of regrounding with who we have on the team here.
Oh, our lineup, yeah, definitely.
Obviously, Ian Anderson playing himself.
Also, he was only 24 at the time of the creation of Thick as a Brick. Is that not bananas?
Truly bonkers.
Yeah.
You know what I was doing when I was 24? I was getting dysentery in Spain, Nick. That's what I was doing at 24.
I wish you'd given me the time. That would have been my first guess.
So we have Ian Anderson, acoustic guitar, flute, violin, trumpet, saxophone. We have Martin Barr on the electric guitar and the lute. Mm-hmm. We have John Evan on piano, organ, and harpsichord. Jeffrey
Smashing
Hammond.
Those keyboards.
Yeah. Yeah. There were so many because he kept breaking them.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Hammond, bass guitar, and spoken word.
Nice.
Yeah. We have Barrymore Barlow on drums, percussion, and timpani.
Our first appearance of Barrymore.
Officially, yeah. I mean, he did play on Life is a Long Song.
True.
But this is his first album as the drummer. Clive Bunker had bunked up, perhaps, with a lady whom he married. Then we have Dee Palmer with our orchestral arrangements, Terry Ellis as the executive producer, Robin Black as the engineer, and of course the whole thing was strictly overseen by the eagle eye of Mr. Anderson himself.
Naturally.
So, yeah, a sort of joke carried too far, perhaps. Or we will see through the course of this next number of episodes, Nick, if it was too far or if it was too far enough.
Well, there is a lot of the articles I've read they're saying, was this in fact actually a failure on their part because they did it to take the piss out of everyone, but it succeeded so well.
They actually put the piss back into people.
They put the piss. They did full circle, 360.
I mean, before we get too steeped in our own analysis of it, I think that we should actually get to the track. I feel like we're going to be taking a lot of analysis breaks through the course of the next number of episodes.
Okay.
I do at some point want to get into the Rolling Stone review of this album.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to save it.
Yep.
Imagine that I'm attaching the Rolling Stone review to a string, which I'm going to hold at the end of a pole in front of our podcast so that we force ourselves salivating to march forward.
Got it. Okay. So we'll very much be getting into the nitty-gritty of the lyrics and the story and the concept with Little Milton and everything there. We will get into the actual album art of all album arts. Like, this album cover is art. It's amazing. Yeah. It's so good.
Ian at one point said semi-jokingly that the album cover, or the album sleeve, I guess as it was called, took as long to make as the album itself, as the recording did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, from what I've read, that's actually pretty true.
Yeah.
And just one final thing before we get into this first track is they referred to it as Python-esque. Ian referred to it as Python-esque, referring to Monty Python. A fun, really bizarre connection to Monty Python. Ian Anderson helped finance Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
You're kidding.
No. He put money into it.
That is truly absurd.
That's amazing.
It's literally so cool. Absurd.
Yeah. Something he said about it is when he went to go see it in the cinema in the States, the Americans were laughing at all of the wrong parts, just like them laughing at all of the wrong parts when they brought Thick as a Brick
Right.
to the States in their tour.
Fascinating.
Granted, Holy Grail was later than Thick as a Brick. Still, there's an affinity there. That style, they all kind of shared that sense of humor.
Right. Holy Grail was released in 75.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, why don't we dive in?
I think we ought to, yeah.
And listen to the first 5 or 6 minutes of Thick as a Brick.
Yeah, I think it's 5 even. This track is referred to as Really Don't Mind / See There a Son is Born. Or See There a Son is Born. See There is a Son
Oh my God.
is born. Okay.
Let's have a listen.
Let's.
Really don't mind if you sit this one out. My words but a whisper, your deafness a shout. I may make you feel, but I can't make you think. Your sperm's in the gutter, your love's in the sink.
So, Nick.
Yeah, Omen. 2 pretty distinct parts, I should say.
Definitely, yes. We have the intro, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Really Don't Mind. And then we have the strong musical transition to See There a Son is Born.
Mm-hmm.
Which has that little couple of lines, and then the rest of it is a musical break.
Yeah, just rocking instrumental.
Where even to start with this?
Yeah, I mean, generally to start in the beginning, I mentioned last episode, we were talking about how nice the acoustic of Nursey was. And I said that it all changes when it comes to Thick as a Brick. I forgot. I feel like a buffoon now, but I forgot that it opens with that really nice acoustic. Like, that is such an iconic sound for Thick as a Brick.
The acoustic really is almost the backbone of this entire first section. Even as we get to See a Son is Born, it's not as prominent, but definitely for the Really Don't Mind section,
mm-hmm.
it's the lead instrument in some ways.
Yeah. The flute and the xylophone, I think, are the most prominent in there because they help to convey that how really light and inconsequential and airy it is, even though the lyrics are very heady.
Oh my gosh.
The sound itself is really, really light, but they are on top of that. Yeah. And they're on top of that really nice kind of airy acoustic.
Yes, absolutely. This, Nick, stands in contrast with everything that has come before it from Jethro Tull, just in the sense of polish and precision.
Yeah.
I feel like we went through the sort of raw, we're just going to blast all of our instruments around at the same time, and then we went through the period where it's like, okay, we're still all quite raw, but we've now gained the skill level where the rawness is contrasted with this very distinct sort of virtuosistic performance style, and now we're in a new territory where this is so well crafted and has been rehearsed so fastidiously that the rawness is still there, but it's because of our choice when we want to let that out.
Yeah. And this song is so unbelievably layered and complex. It had to be.
Oh, absolutely. There's no other way to do it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they rehearsed this for a lot longer than they rehearsed any of their previous material before recording it.
2 weeks. It took them 2 weeks to put it together.
Right. And that was just rehearsing.
Yes. Yeah. And then it took him 2 weeks to record it,
Yeah.
which is bonkers.
There's also, from what I have read, there was a more collaborative approach to recording this than there was any of the previous stuff.
Yeah.
It sounds like Ian, started writing this the same way that he wrote everything else, which was he, started writing in his hotel room, but instead of getting to the end of a set of lyrics and stopping and saying, all right, I'm going to do a new song now, he just kept going and going and going and going. It sounds like when they were rehearsing and recording it, he would sometimes get to the end of one bit and then just say, so who's got an idea for the next part?
Yeah. Yeah. The way I saw it is they were recording in the Rolling Stones mobile studio, first of all. Or,
Wow.
not recording, rehearsing.
Yeah,
And
in London.
And Ian would wake up, write down like 3 or 4 minutes worth of music on his music sheets and bring it to the studio, and they would build off of it from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds quite intensive. Martin Barr says that they would rehearse until 4 or 5 in the morning and then go to bed for 5 hours and get up and just start literally where they left off.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very long 2 weeks.
Apparently, and this is according to Barr, John Evan is due a lot of credit for the creative work on this album.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of, I think the musical themes and how things were strung together. And it is, I mean, it's true that his playing is really, really throughout this entire album.
Yeah.
In a very, he's the butter that marries the meat and the saffron and the wine all into this delicious coq au vin of an album.
It's also, even though Dee Palmer is present, and Dee must have been exhausted by the end of this album.
I'm sure they all were.
But like you've mentioned in the past before, particularly when we first saw John join the band, is that being a keyboard player, you have a slightly different ear to hearing and perceiving the music.
Yeah.
And I think that ties in pretty well with what you're saying, is that he, maybe Ian, whether they did it intentionally or not, I don't know, maybe Ian leaned on that expertise a little bit more than in previous albums, just by virtue of when you end a spot and say, hey, does anybody have any ideas? Everybody else is like, I wasn't thinking that far ahead. And John Evans is like, oh yeah, well, I guess we could do this. You know, it's when you see someone who's so good at what they do that it just seems like 2 levels beyond what you could even conceive.
Well, and that's what we talked about when we first came across the character of John Evan. Ian, we had a quote from Ian saying, John Evan coming into the band really allowed me to write music differently in a new way than previously.
That's right.
And I think this is like the extension of that. And I think that, as you're saying, Evan's expertise, particularly his background in classical music, is really showing in this, because there are so many key changes. There's so many rhythmic changes where, they have to marry this thing with this totally other different thing. And he has the theory to make that happen smoothly. And then everyone else, knows how to back that up so it sounds seamless. But man, what a lot of work.
Yeah, I don't know all of the terminology, but there's a carry through of themes. There are several
musical themes.
Musical themes, yeah, that we hear over and over, and every time they're tweaked a little bit and they're changed a little bit. But
totally.
Being able to do that smoothly and well does take a certain degree of training and perfection that someone like maybe Ian, who wasn't officially like taught, who wasn't really trained, may not have been aware of.
Right. Or had the idea, but maybe didn't necessarily know how to execute it in the same way that Evans did. I mean,
Yeah.
but regardless, I mean, this is definitely not like Blood Wind Pig right here.
Yeah.
This is not any kind of this is like the opposite of a jam band, right? This that we're listening to exactly now.
Yeah. It is perfectly sculpted down to each single nuance.
It's amazing. It's truly amazing.
And so far we're only talking about the first 5 minutes. We haven't heard anything.
And just the music. We haven't even talked about the lyrics.
I know.
Yeah. This is, Nick, there's some music that you can listen to casually. There's some music that you can listen to while you work. Britney Spears, for instance.
Yep.
A lot of Irish instrumental music.
I'm assuming you're getting at this is not one of those.
Oh no, I was just saying. No, that was my full thought. No, yeah, of course. This is not something that I can just like flip on as background music.
Yeah, and that's, as much as I hate to say it, that's a reason I very seldom listen to this album.
You need the brain space to be able to do it. You need to sit down in your armchair and pour yourself a bracing cup of tea or a fine scotch. Dim the lights. Tell your children to stay out of Daddy's room. And really have a listen.
And the album, and you need the time, because the album's an hour long.
Yeah. And then you have to schedule 15 minutes of breathing and crying.
Right, in between, yeah.
From one side to the other.
It is, okay, yeah, yeah.
Shall we dive into the lyrics, Nick?
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I just want to kind of end with, I love, and we're going to be hearing a lot of these regularly throughout this album, is that transition from Really Don't Mind into See There a Son Is Born. It goes from like really light into almost tempestuous. It feels like storm clouds are moving in when we get to that point.
Well, who is moving in is Martin Barr.
Okay.
He's moving his stuff in. He's signing a lease.
I was gonna say he can live with me if he wants.
he might need to.
I think Martin's pretty comfortable.
I think he's comfortable with himself.
And I'm proud of him for that.
At the end of the day, that's the relationship that matters the most.
That's right.
All right, Nick.
Yeah, let's go from music to lyrics.
Let's start with the low-hanging fruits. Hello! Let's start with the low-hanging fruit. What does it mean to be thick as a brick, Nick? Thick as a Nick brick.
Dumb. You're dumb.
Yeah.
You're dense.
Exactly.
Thoughts and ideas cannot penetrate your thick skull.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
So that's the theme.
Yeah.
But now
the overarching theme, yeah.
But who is thick as a brick? Because it's interesting. Really don't mind if you sit this one out. My words, but a whisper, your deafness a shout. I mean, it feels like the singer is railing against this thickness.
Gerald Bostock is our narrator, the writer of the poem that this is based on. All of that said very tongue-in-cheek.
And old JB, fictionally, is railing, it feels to me, is railing against this sort of pervasive deafness, this thickness around him.
Yeah, the you is the grand plural you.
I may make you feel, but I can't make you think, says the child genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to posit right away that, I mean, obviously we know that it was not written by an 8-year-old. It was written by a 24-year-old named Dean Anderson.
24 going on 60.
Oh, my goodness. And, we've talked a lot before about Ian's intelligence. And I think we've even talked before about this notion that some very intelligent people experience a lot of loneliness and lack of connection to the rest of the world because they're just moving at a different mental pace. They're vibrating on a different frequency than most other people.
Yeah.
And that's what this feels like to me. This kind of frustration.
Oh, that Gerald is vibrating on that frequency. You're saying that
quote unquote
frequency.
Gerald, yes, but
Sure.
in fact, Ian Anderson is vibrating on that level.
Yeah, I mean, he said that Gerald is not someone from his childhood. It's not like you can go back and say, "Oh, this kid was Gerald." But
No.
the poem is autobiographical. He has acknowledged that.
For Ian.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me with our benefit of the remove of time that Ian invented a child to speak this through as part of the joke. As part of the joke that isn't really a joke. And
It's the ventriloquist who says all the bad things through the mouth of his dummy.
Yes, exactly. So Ian Anderson has his hand up the bum of an 8-year-old boy. Oh, wait a minute. Let's take that back.
Yep. The letter is in the mailbox.
And
Cease and desist.
I can taste it. That's what. No, never mind.
Yep.
Yes. So what's the kid's name?
Gerald Bostock.
So Gerald Bostock is the dummy, and in a way, we're all the dummy. And Ian Anderson is puppeting his brain.
Yeah.
Your sperm's in the gutter, your love's in the sink. Goodness me.
Yeah, but what about the story?
Oh.
Yeah.
What is that saying? Is that sort of like you're so dumb that you like, I mean, okay, Nick. Is this sort of a poetic way of saying that your efforts are being wasted?
Ooh.
That your thoughts, the children of your thoughts, aren't able to be conceived in the womb of the world because you're shooting them down the sink?
That?
Your thoughts are in the gutter and so they can't rise to fruition?
That's really good. That's really, really good.
Thank you.
I initially thought of it as like you're a waste of what it means to be a human. Your procreation, you're committing the sin of Onan, and what good are you? You're so dumb. You know, you're just. I mean, monkeys masturbate uncontrollably. Like you are this. You are the equivalent of a chimpanzee.
I resemble that comment.
Yeah, I've heard stories.
No, I think that we're both narrowing in on it. I think that that's essentially the poetic meaning of it is you are ineffective and your acts achieve nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So you ride yourselves over the fields and you make all your animal deals.
So you ride yourselves over the fields and you make all your animal deals, and your wise men don't know how it feels to be thick as a brick.
I mean, this is sort of a continuation.
Yeah.
It's like references to. It's funny, you know, for someone who also has the nostalgia of the country because he moved from the country to the city, there's also this disdain for some elements of country life or the people who populate the country.
I know. I see what you're saying with that, and I think you're right. But again, I saw it differently. So you ride yourselves over the fields feels like two armies coming at one another in combat.
Oh.
And you make all your animal deals because it's primal, it is violent, but that is an allegory for the combat that is now in civilization, which is like business. Make all your animal deals.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, because it is, the world of business is simply the extension of the world of war. We wage war now primarily through capitalism.
Yeah, it's kill or be killed. Buy out. Disney buys out everybody. They are the alpha male.
Yeah, they just changed CEOs.
They did. Well, they're transitioning.
They're transitioning.
Yep.
I mean, all of this to me, Nick, feels very, very much like it has a lot of historical perspective. Like I feel like so far, this sentiment and even these verses could exist at almost any period of history. And there's sort of this pervasive feeling of being unable to connect with the world around you because of your intelligence, which makes sense why, the character is an 8-year-old genius prodigy boy.
Yeah, right. Right. And those last two lines, and your wise men don't know how it feels to be thick as a brick. That almost sounds derogatory to me. Like, oh, your wise men, they're so wise, but they don't know what it's like to be this.
Right. Which just continues that sense of disconnect.
Yeah. They can't relate. They can't truly be human.
It's like all I see, the singer is saying, all I see around me are people who are so dumb and so ineffective that they can't even get their sperm into the right place.
Yeah.
Or people who are so wise that they have no idea how the world really functions at all. And here I am, neither one. And so I'm just going to make this incredibly deadly serious joke.
But being so boy genius, this feeling of almost haughtiness above everybody, like I feel like he ought to be in the wise men category. But is it he's wise, he's innocently wise as opposed to wise with years so he can see better?
I think so. I think that the connotation of wise men in this case is someone who removes themselves from society through study and separation, whereas this is a person who is inherently living in society, who doesn't have the ability perhaps to separate themselves.
And he has that eternally frustrating yet endearing charming quality of a kid who has no filters.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. This is very filterless.
Mm-hmm.
You get all the nicotine when you smoke it.
Yeah. It is menthol though, so I mean whatever. I don't think we can go line by line through the rest of this. We're already at 42.
We'll die. So Nick, this whole next section where we have the musical shift and it gets almost dreamy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just kidding. And the sandcastle?
Not yet, yeah.
Okay, so then we go into the seaside metaphor section.
Mm-hmm. And all of this feels like repetition just in different lines.
Absolutely.
It's all the same thing.
And it all has this, you know what it actually makes me think of is the Blackpool episode.
Okay.
Sandcastles, tides, the close of play, all of these, the suntan, all these things that sort of feel like a day at the beach, but he's using that metaphor to describe the temporalness, the temporary quality of so many of the things. I just love the phrase sandcastle virtues.
Yeah.
They're
all swept away. Yeah. They look solid, but they're not permanent.
Right. And you see that all the time. It's like, oh, well, I believe in this. And 10 years later, people have completely abandoned that. I'm trying to think of
or 2 Instagram posts later, it's everything is so fickle and fleeting, especially now in the
I'm going on a social media cleanse and here are my posts about it.
Yeah. Look how happy I am.
Read my blog about my social media cleanse.
I'm going to influence you now.
I'm an influencer.
Ugh.
I wish.
Please let me influence you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all the same. It's looking at the mutability of time and it's kind of the opposite of Life's a Long Song. Is that time is running out now.
Right.
You can only do so much. And I'm a bad dream that I just had today. And you shake your head and say it's a shame.
I'm a bad dream that I just had today.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm a bad dream that I just had today. And you shake your head. You said it's a shame.
I mean, Nick, we're like in the first 5 minutes
Yeah,
of this
literally,
song,
yeah.
we've gotten into like, you know, the concept that reality is perception, that history is an inevitable force of, you know, but that everything stays the same. The disconnect of seeing the world. I mean, holy cow.
It's heady. Yeah, and this must be like the first 2 minutes in terms of lyrics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is still the light sounding of the music.
I know.
It's still the flute and the xylophone and the guitar. Then we wind down a little bit and spin me back down the years and days of my youth, draw the lace and black curtains and shut out the whole truth, spin me down the long ages, let them sing the song.
Spin me back down the years and the days of my youth. Draw the lace and black curtains and shut out the whole truth. Spin me down the long ages, let them sing the song.
So that to me feels like time travel. That to me feels like going back in history to when things were exactly the same but with different clothes.
Right. In a funnier accent. Yeah, that is a montage song right there. That's a montage verse of we see him like spinning away, and
we're going into the dream sequence.
Yeah. Which leads us into that really dark sounding, see there, a son is born. It instills panic. See there, a son is born.
See there, a son is born.
And we pronounce him fit
and we
to
pronounce
fight.
him fit to fight. I'll stop.
There are blackheads on his shoulders, and he pees himself in the night. We'll make a man of him, put him to trade, teach him how to play Monopoly and how to sing in the rain.
All right, let's get some quick take definitions. Put him to trade.
Teach him a trade. Teach him something physical that he can then make money on, that he can make a living on.
Teach him the boiler fluid industry.
Yeah, which is basically before this millennial frou-frou age that we are so fortunate to live in. And I don't say that pejoratively at all, but like we have the freedom. It kind of stopped with the boomers, and that's why we have such an issue, is because they're the ones still running society and they think it needs to be this way, but it's so hard for us to do anything.
The reality of it has changed.
Yeah. But so that was, I mean, starting from when people started having kids, so always, is you would raise a kid You would squirt out as many kids as possible, raise them to do what you did. So they'll take care of you when you can't do it anymore, and they can have more kids to further the line. Period. Right. That is.
So it's like here we're going to teach you this trade. That's your life. Good luck. We'll see you when you die.
Yep.
Teach him to play Monopoly.
See, that is interesting to me because that seems like, but we're going to teach him something of a diversion. Teach him how to sing in the rain.
Oh, I don't think that Monopoly in this context is a diversion.
No?
I think it's capitalism.
Oh, okay.
Teach him how to, quote unquote, play the game.
Sure.
Wink.
Okay. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, it's not the game, it's the game. It's back up to the businessmen doing their animal deals. Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Now, how to sing in the rain? No idea.
Yeah, is that a reference to something? The only thing I can think of is singing in the rain. But, I mean, he sings in the rain because he's in love. So, is that, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Anyone with any thoughts on how to sing in the rain, let us know.
Anyone with any thoughts?
Let us know.
Well, you're already listening to our podcast, aren't you?
That wraps up. The last at least minute is all instrumental. So really, see there a son is born is just what, 3 or 4 lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Nick, I often make digs, and I think we all do, and certainly the world does, about America being not a really intelligent or intellectual place.
Sure. Not completely unfounded.
Correct. And yet, this album, which is probably the most intellectual rock album ever recorded, hit #1 in the U.S.
That's very true.
So, what gives?
Yeah, why? When it's such a drastic diversion from Aqualung, you know?
Was it just the right thing at the right time? Was 1974 a moment of blossoming intellectualism amongst the rock and rollers of the time? Or did people just like it because it was weird and so they snatched it up, or what?
Did it somehow on some molecular level, the idea of a prog concept album just really resonate somehow?
Right.
For
Did people want to feel
something
like
so new?
They were in on the joke.
Yeah, but did they even know it was a joke? They didn't know it was a joke.
The joke was they bought the album.
Well, they were the butts of the joke.
And does it matter?
No, I think ultimately, that's, to go back to what I said kind of in the beginning, is that when all these really intellectual rock columnists are like, so did you really fail with Thick as a Brick because everybody loved it? It doesn't, who cares? Right. And that's what Ian says, is if people loved it, I don't care.
Right. Also,
he's honored that it's so revered.
Right. Who would record an album being like, well, I hope everyone hates this?
Yeah,
that
right.
doesn't make any sense.
Maybe Tom Waits or some super high concept person.
Right. I'm going to record this album and put it in a bottle and bury it in a volcano where no one will ever hear it.
I'm going to scream into all of your mouths.
I'm going to record this album with no microphone, no instruments, and I also won't be there.
I want you to think about me playing something 5 years from now. Forget about it and set an alarm. Yeah. I don't think he's that high concept, but
I love Tom Waits.
He's a delight. He's an American treasure. He really is.
He truly is. Yeah, fascinating. Well, yep. Nick, I'm really excited about next episode when I think we will dive into the Rolling Stones review.
Yeah, I think we ought to. We've actually kind of incidentally covered a lot of my research. I have a few more quotes I want to hit from Ian Anderson along the way, but that Rolling Stone review is going to be really, really good.
So far, I feel like this is a big FU, and I'm not sure to whom. I suspect it
Yeah.
might be to me.
Yeah, I feel kind of targeted here, Mr. Anderson.
But, but I don't know.
Right.
It's very ambiguous. It's gorgeously ambiguous.
I hope by
Much like my wardrobe.
that is accurate. I hope by the end of May we'll be done. Our last episode is 519. So I hope by then we'll have an answer. And I'm sure we'll have many more questions that have answers.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That will require answers, but I hope most of them will be answered.
Yeah.
But next week, the next portion is the next 5.5 minutes. It is lovingly referred to as The Poet and the Painter.
Amazing. Until then, if you are an 8-year-old boy with a genius intellect and an inability to connect to the world around him, take out your frustrations by writing us an epic poem in the form of a 5-star review and rating.
I really don't mind if you give us a review and a rating. I do mind if it's not 5 stars, though. I really do mind.
Here's a concept. Give us 5 stars.
I like it.
Until next time, I am Omen Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
And we are Feckless Momes.
And this is Talk Tull to Me. Or is it?
This podcast is an intellectual rowing machine which seems to simultaneously synthesize the 18th century concept of pugilism with the inherent despair of each of our souls. You see, Talk Tull to Me is, in fact, and at its very core, a proud member of what I believe in a decade's time everyone will be referring to as the Feckless Momes Audio Network.